Good day, friends. Welcome to video number 4 of Marriage and Divorce. And today, I'd like to talk about the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and in how their wives were chosen. We see Abraham at first, marrying his half-sister, someone that shared a similar culture to him. And God called him out of the place where he was familiar with, the culture, and away from extended family members. And God was going to teach him his ways, and he was going to develop this relationship with God. And we saw over the process of time that, Abraham and Sarah lived a life of such that when we talk about man and woman and husband and wife, how they submitted to each other, whether the thing was good or whether it was not. Then secondly, we saw Isaac. We saw Abraham being careful about Isaac's wife. And he sent Eliezer to, his extended family members to fetch a wife. He said, swear to me that you would not take a wife from the Canaanites. Because Abraham knew that these people that he was amongst, that they were not people that served the God that he served. They were idol worshipers. So he did not want his son Isaac to be married to women from this nation. And then we saw with Isaac and Jacob that after he blessed Jacob, and although Jacob had deceived him, he sent Jacob to go to the place where his mother's family, Rebekah's family, to get him a wife, and not to take a wife from amongst the people where they lived. Because those Canaanite women were not women that served the God that he served, and neither were the people of that place. But notice something about Esau. Esau knew that the Canaanite women were not pleasing to his father, and the same attitude and a very lack of character and a lack of judgment that he had, he would go and get a wife of the Canaanites, specifically from Ishmael, because Ishmael was not the seed of promise. And the people that were his descendants were not people that were living for the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So not only did Esau take on himself a wife from there, but he got more than one. So he purposely went and decided to practice polygamy. But notice, even though Jacob became a polygamist, Jacob was actually tricked by his father-in-law Laban. And that's why he was introduced to polygamy. But the one thing that I've seen when I look at the scripture, not only from those early days, but later on, even in the time when Jesus walked, although marriage is defined between a man and a woman, the one thing that we notice is that these other women were also wives. So the men were not committing adultery. So God still honored the institution of marriage, even though the way that it was expressed was different from what he proposed. So when we think about marriage, and we think about the way that God defined it between one man and a woman, we see the way it was expressed by men in the earth was that they would sometimes take on multiple wives. And I know sometimes with multiple wives, there comes other challenges, because it's challenging enough just to keep a monogamous relationship between a man and a woman than to consider that there'll be other partners in that marriage relationship where there are now multiple wives. So the carnality of man, ever since sin came into the human family, we see that there are this expression of polygamy. But it was never God's design. But nevertheless, it is still a marriage. So when we think about it of itself, it is not sinful. And neither do we see in Scripture that it's particularly sinful to marry someone that's not born again. However, since marriage is such a challenge, when people are not born again, it creates an even bigger challenge for those people who desire to live godly. And oftentimes what we saw as, the history of time went on with the people of God and the children of Israel, as God would later tell them not to marry those women because they will lead you in a life following their practices, which to turn from God to spiritual adultery. So it may not be a sin, but it may be something, a thorn in your flesh. It may be something that will distract you, something that will take you away from your loving relationship with God. Consider these things and search the Scriptures, and join me again as we continue to discuss marriage and divorce. My name is Lincoln Johnson. God bless you today.